Welcome to the podcast that questions everything, from conspiracies to philosophy, from science to religion. We will be looking at the construct of the illusion, and as always, we will question everything. Hello and welcome to Everything's an Illusion, a podcast where we question everything. I'm your host, Rob Wallace. This week I'm joined by the Master of Media, Mr. Colin Wood. How you doing, Colin?
I'm alright. Master of Media.
Master of Media. It's as good a title as any a title. Now, Colin was listening to our podcast from last week where myself and Greg both leave orientated, and Colin has a different perspective and is a very educated individual, so he was like, here, get me on your podcast, I have some things to say. And so we're here and we're going to look at EU version 2
Electric
Boogaloo with a 50-50, hopefully a 50-50 equal perspective, so we can get some debate and discussions, because I knew a few folk were like, look at these cunts talking about the leave. So we have Remain, Leave, and we'll talk about EU and all the kind of good stuff. So fire on in, Colin, Media Master.
Alright, so what was your feedback from the last one? Was there like a lot of like, oh, you guys are just biased, kind of, or that's me putting it nicely, it's probably more abusive than that.
In reality, we don't get a lot of feedback because in general the podcast doesn't get kind of a lot of feedback from kind of folk in the UK where this politics is really kicking out. From my personal experience in the timeline, Facebook and Twitter, the perceived media pushed propaganda is that everyone who voted Leave is, as I stated last week, uneducated, racist troglodyte. Unfortunately, I'm in that bracket due to the media, but I'm
so
not a racist, uneducated troglodyte. I've voted Leave for different reasons, be it, as I stated last week, the EU is a big corporate entity. I don't understand how you can, like me, independence voter, vote for the independent Scotland, want to get rid of the shackles of Westminster, but yet want to keep the shackles of Brussels.
I can
and along this kind of these lines. So if you want to start there, start with wherever you wish.
I'll probably start with my reaction. Probably the best place to start. Right? Okay, so I had a job on Friday morning, so I didn't stay up for the live results, which I usually do for these kind of things because it's you get to watch politicians talk shit and complain about them, which everyone loves. So anyway, my kind of thoughts on it was like, I actually got a text from my girlfriend that says, Colin, I've got some bad news. And then I was like, fuck. So I was not happy, I was fuming all day. And to me, like, this result was more hard-hitting than the independence referendum result. Because for me, like the independence referendum, I was kind of on the fence for the longest time, and I was kind of reluctantly yes at the time. Basically being, the sort of less objectionable choice. I mean, me personally, I would have preferred like a third option, like maybe like a federal kind of arrangement where it's, you've got basically your independence to the point of to the point of when it comes to your like security, for example, a shared military, which makes perfect sense considering we're all the same island.
So in that idea, you could essentially, Scotland being independent of Westminster could legalise cannabis, but England does not legalise cannabis, whereas at a minute we could not legalise cannabis across the board. So
I love how you just went to the cannabis thing of all the sort of issues. It's cannabis.
Well, I think it's a very valid issue for a lot of people who need it for medicinal purposes,
Well,
not just
true.
to get high. That's been shown to. I know I digress, but it's been shown to help again Alzheimer's, autism, MS, ME. Again, there's loads of things, and it's
Oh.
kind of crazy that we'll prescribe these man-made crazy drugs where like death is a side effect, but yet we will not legalise a thing which grows in the garden that anybody could grow, that anybody could take advantage of, and where's the profit?
Well, yeah, I agree, and I agree for all those reasons on that issue. But again, let's digress back. Yeah. Basically, well, where was I? You've made me lose my train of thought now.
Federalised, a third option.
Yeah, third option. I think that would have been a much better option. Because for me, right, I do not hate, I'm not like one of these, flag waving, like, oh, Scotland freedom types,
Me.
I don't think flag waving should enter into politics in any way, shape or form.
That's good.
Because to me, when it comes to decisions that affect your country, your thoughts should be kind of rational rather than irrational. And I think patriotism is a very irrational thing. It's a very heartfelt thing, and I think you should be engaging your mind and not your heart when it comes to politics. For that reason, that's why I'm kind of disgusted that a large portion of the sort of Brexit vote, where it is very much, reclaim our country, taking back power, make Britain great again, all that, hoo-ha, all that bullshit. I think that's what kind of bothers me, For starters, right, Great Britain is already quite great. I mean, we're not exactly war torn. Most people have got a reasonably comfortable existence. Yes, it has its problems. Yes, have problems with education. We have problems with a lot of things that are people aren't happy about, inequality. But at the end of the day, we haven't got it that bad. We're not fearing for our lives. We've not got an evil dictator. As much as people hate Cameron, he's not as evil as everyone likes to make out.
That's a very valid point, because when you look at the life of a general citizen within the United Kingdom, mass majority of people have a roof over their head, running water, access to food, access to education, access to transport. And when you look at these sort of things in the worldwide context, then just having a roof, access to clean water, access to education, then you're already in that top 10% of humans on the planet in terms of the shit that you have access to.
Yeah.
But everything can always be, compared to something grander.
Well, that's true. It's true. Yeah, and everything could always be better. And I'll be the first one to admit the EU has its problems. But to me, the answer is not, after 30 years of doing quite well through the EU, and all of a sudden,
How do we know that we're doing quite well through the EU when we don't have a comparison, a direct comparison of Scotland or the United Kingdom being like a separate entity that ran parallel, that was out of the EU, and where our budget would be, and
but you would never have that anyway. You'd never have that anyway. But
so what I'm saying is, what you said was an assumption.
Yeah, okay. The assumption is we've done quite well, right? And then all of a sudden, the economy goes to shit, and now it's only really since the economy's gone to shit that people have been like, I've said, we need to get out the EU, and I think it's a lot of it's to do with bailing out, the likes of Greece and them, unwilling to, take austerity measures and things like that.
Who wasn't willing to take austerity measures?
Greece.
Greece.
They were not allowed them to be forced upon them.
So who was forcing that upon them?
The EU, yes.
The EU.
But to me, it
the
makes
democratic,
the
elected organisation.
It's not. I mean, it's not a democratic move, but it makes sense. We're bailing you out. You need to try and curb your spending, but
the people of Greece voted for something.
Yeah.
So the people of Greece voted for something, and yet the system above that said, we don't care what you voted for.
Yeah.
We are the. I'm your parent. Yeah, I mean, you think that's a good idea? I think it's not a good idea. I win. I'm the parent.
I don't think it's a bad
That's
idea, but you've got
in the home of democracy, from the people, by the people, for the people.
But you've got to understand it. I mean, a lot of your EU Parliament is democratically, elected.
Yes, of course, yes.
Right? Yeah, all the laws have to go through that Parliament.
Yep.
Right.
EU is a democratic place. I'm the one of the ignorant ones that are like, oh, they're unelected. The people who are unelected don't actually have. It's just like the chair in our Westminster Parliament. The chair isn't kind of elected, but he's like a high level official. He tells either side. He's a person who, and there's somebody who sits behind the chair who isn't elected, who has a lot of power. These people they're not MPs. They're not elected by us. But they have a functioning role within that Parliament. There is people within the EU Parliament that have a functioning role that are unelected, and these are the people that people keep on going, they're unelected. Well, there's loads of unelected people.
So's the House of Lords, so's the Queen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Come on.
I'm with you.
We're talking about this kind of shit, like, them getting rid of, the unelected European, Union, when we've got a Queen who does hee-haw, let's be honest, other than maybe bring in some tourism. Sure, she might be a very nice old lady, or she might have, arranged the assassination of Di, depends what kind of group you belong to.
I like that, conspiracies.
So she might have had a hand in that, but you never know. I'm not one for believing all these conspiracies, but
I like to believe conspiracies.
I know you do. Some people have suggested that anyway. So basically, like, and then you've got House of Lords, another unelected group that is paid for by the taxpayer,
and is increasing.
Yes,
in their numbers.
Yes. So I mean, to me, the problem is not the EU; it's Westminster.
Yeah.
And my view is that Westminster has become so corrupt that it's pretty much irredeemable. And to me, that was my sort of reasoning, one of my reasons for voting Scottish independence. The Scottish Parliament, again, not perfect, hasn't quite...
But it's newer.
It's newer. It hasn't quite been corrupted yet, no doubt it'll get there, in an independent Scotland eventually, because power tends to corrupt absolutely. But, and for me, the reason I support the EU is because they can, to a degree, shackle the Westminster government. To a degree, for example, our human rights. European Bill of Human Rights. What happens in post-Brexit Britain? Okay, we're supposed to be getting our own British Bill of Human Rights or something like that, but who's to say it's going to be exactly the same?
Well,
who's to say it's going to be exactly the same? I guarantee you, for the large part, it'll probably be the same, but there might be one or two subtle omissions, that might benefit Westminster and the corporations.
This is one of the things that's the bee in my bonnet, if you like, and it was the same with independence, and now it's the same with kind of this post-Brexit kind of talk. People have this idea that the European Union was fantastic and gave us things like human rights and these sort of things, and then the de facto kind of leftover of that thought is that we cannot generate these great things for ourselves. And one of the things about being a smaller democratic state is it's easier to bring these things to fruit. So for instance, in a post-Brexit Britain, when the Tories get in their far right ways, within a few years people will be saying, you know what, we have had enough of central right Labour opposition that don't do jack shit. They've nearly been wiped out in Scotland, they're going to get wiped out in fucking England because that 80% of the party have got no relationship to the working left that the fucking party is actually and the voters. So they'll get hangweed. The far right, i.e. the Tories, mass majority of people who have voted for them the last time are now waking up to the reality that the Tories weren't actually for the middle classes at all. The Tories were for the upper middle classes and the upper classes. So people are now starting to realise, and it's like the grass is always green on the other side. That's why we have a kind of central left kind of government for X amount of years, and then they can't fulfil their promises because it's very complicated. And then we have a kind of central right government, and they fuck up and don't hang with and everybody's promising a chicken in every pot. But for me, the smaller the democratic kind of system, the more opportunity. Like for instance, you look at Iceland, Panama Papers that revealed the Prime Minister had been getting dodgy dealing and getting some tax-free money in Panama, and the people went to his front door en masse and evicted him. Now he's no longer the Prime Minister. That can happen in a small democratic nation. Scotland, as a small democratic nation, could have that kind of reactive democratic. But I think it's Austria or Switzerland, one of the two, that vote on a very local basis over things like, do we buy another 35 fighter jets? And local authorities had the power, each of them voting, and then when the votes were tallied up to determine if the armed forces purchased another 35. Things like that to me is real democracy, real power. And unfortunately, the side effect of the idea of like human rights, I'm all for that. I go even further, but we as a small independent, we can enforce these things, we can enact these things, but the problem is apathetic. My dad's an activist, he's been a political activist all his days, and I've seen somebody who, when they're shutting down the local toilets at the local authority, shutting down the toilets in the shopping centre, he does a one-man protest. He's out there with his placard, he's putting toilet roll next to the toilet with a toilet roll, a bucket and a sign saying emergency toilet for when they shut the toilets. One-man protest, getting in there, educating people, standing up. The problem today is most people read a couple of articles, like myself, and then they talk, and then that's next week, whatever the mass media tells them to be interesting. Oh, anthrax. Oh, fucking bird disease. Oh, fucking let's get passionate about France. Let's get passionate about it's very much hamburger mentality, short, and that's all I'm seeing. There's nobody looking at, I want a Star Trek utopia.
Yeah. I know that's what you're after. Resource-based kind of society. My only issue with that is you would need to level civilization as we know it, because unfortunately the foundation of civilization was flawed, because people, people didn't have all the answers to begin with. So we've been kind of building up society, learning as we're going along, improving a little by little. But if the foundation is flawed, then ultimately, no matter what you put on top of that, it's going to be flawed, and that's the problem. So for a resource-based kind of world to work, you would effectively need to level all our cities and redesign them in basically an efficient way, and that's the problem with it, and it's never going to happen. That is never going to happen. Well, sort of Independence Day.
Yeah, but there's loads of things where in society, or if you look at history, large swathes of time, things do happen. There's some like for instance, I was listening to a podcast today with a guy called he does hardcore history. His name is, I'll come to him in a second. And this one was about the King of Kings, all about like empires coming and going, and he's talking about the Syrian Empire and that sort of time where that's an ancient empire, like going right back. And then he's talking about but when the Syrians were at the head of before the Babylonians, before the Akkadians, way back 3,000 years ago, they knew themselves as their empire went back into antiquity another 5,000, 6,000 years. And he said, like, for instance, we are closer to the life of Cleopatra than Cleopatra was to the building of the pyramids. And that was within her own empire and her own, she was Egyptians, we, as seen that empire disappear thousands of years ago, we are closer to her in time than she was to the building of the pyramids. And then that Egyptian empire was thousands of years old before they even built the pyramids. What I'm getting at is the European Union is like 40 years old. This is a small fragment, a blink in history, and a small part. Maybe it will expand, maybe it will not expand, but the reality of all history has been people with power, people with money, people with wealth manipulate the masses, and unfortunately today it's so sophisticated, so clever, using media, using control, that a lot of people, like, to me this is a great opportunity. The shit's been ripped up. When the shit hits the fan, it's usually a good time for the things to change.
Well, we'll see. Time will tell on that one. No, I get your point. The problem is, I think human nature, whether it's nature or nurture, I don't know. But I'm willing to kind of guess it's probably nature. Is some people will always strive for power, and they'll always, try to, will always see themselves as better than the rest of us, right? And if you look at nature, for example, your ant colony has a queen. Your lions, you have an alpha male in the pride. So it's not just us.
That's very true. That's very true. The Queen does have that. There is the beautiful thing about nature and how we are very different from nature. Nature has these. A lion eats a gazelle. That's natural shit. You know what I mean? Ant colonies, bee colonies. They have information that structures. We are the exact same. We have, the bees. The queen bee, the hierarchy, all that kind of stuff. It's just
so
most people only live and look at 70 years of life. They never look beyond the 70 years of life, so they never see the bigger cycle. The bigger, all empires rise and fall. Migrants, people are a lot of people are angry at migrants, and it's like, we are a small nation full of migrants. Every single nation on earth is a migrant. You know what I mean? The peoples continuously. If you look over a big enough part of time, it's like the Romans came here. The Romans had West African, North African, all through the Mediterranean.
The Vikings came here.
The Vikings came here. The Germans came here. We are plus the Celts and. Like, that's the thing. The Celts came here, so it's...
And what worries me is post Brexit is this is more so going to be England rather than Scotland. Is this sort of inward looking mentality, where looking inward rather than you looking outward is always a bad thing in my view. I think in this sort of day and age we should be trying to cooperate with other nations.
Oh, we're still cooperating.
Yeah, well, we are, kind of, but I don't know long term how things are going to pan out, in the sense of, are we going to get a trade deal? If we're going to get a trade deal, then surely we've got to have freedom of movement, which we didn't want. That's one of the reasons why we.
That's a trade deal with Europe.
Uh-huh.
There's plenty of trade.
Aye, no, yeah.
If you're specifically talking about,
Sorry, I meant access to the single market. Yeah, that's saying. Say we want that, but we don't want freedom of movement.
No, you need them all.
You need. That's the thing. You need to take both, because that's part of the rules. So
then the question is: does Australia, does Canada, does America, does any of these other nations that are non-Euro, does Turkey, does Azerbaijan, does China, does Russia, do these people trade with Europe?
Oh yeah, of course.
No, then we can trade with Europe.
I never said. Sorry, I didn't mean to imply that we couldn't. But what I'm saying is, we want access to the single market.
So what's the difference between the single market and trading with Europe?
I believe it's beneficial in terms of, sorry, I hate saying it's beneficial in terms of, like, basically finance, in terms of, cost to us to trade.
But that's we can trade with Europe. Obviously, we don't. I think for me that's one of the biggest drawbacks of leaving, is the ability for I'm a bit older now, but definitely young people, the ability to go to Spain, to France, to Germany, exchange at university, exchange working, going and spending a summer or a couple of years working in Germany, working in Belgium, and experiencing a different way of life, a different language, a different kind of beer, food,
totally,
different looking women, different history, different culture, all that, different cinema, different TV, different newspapers, and opening your wee world to, holy fuck, this is a great world with variety and different ways. And
that's how you're going to get closer to that Star Trek future that you're wanting, where people are open-minded and are accepting
but
of other cultures.
But at the same time, I can go and travel to America, South America, Egypt, wherever I want, and I just have to follow the protocols, be it. Yeah, I could live and work and...
But you know what a lot of people will be like? They'll be complaining about the protocols.
Oh no, for sure.
They've got their Brexit, and then they'll complain about the protocols they need to follow. Because people have their cake and eat it mentality.
Fly back from Spain, you now have to go to the rest of the world.
Yeah, which is a bit preemptive, I think, because we're not out yet.
I know, but we are not out. But there's a lot of people on the Remain side that have been discussing and openly talking about it isn't going to happen. It's just an advisory. But the reality is, Europe are going to make it happen.
Of course,
because it's a slap in the face. It's like you want
to talk about undemocratic.
Aye, you talk about leaving. Your people voted to leave. You're leaving. There's no secondary comeback.
Yeah.
We're not like because even the Article 50, we don't do that.
I think
there'll be something written somewhere that they can enforce that 2-year window to start.
Totally. I think. I mean, my main issue with the result was how the campaign was run on the Brexit end, and the Remain end to an extent. The lies that were flung both ways, but just concentrate on sort of Brexit at the moment. In fact, actually, let's start with the rules of the referendum. So basically, the rules were. Let's see, I've got my notes written down. Right, so your eligibility, right? You have to be British or Irish citizen living in the UK, or a Commonwealth citizen living in the UK.
I qualify.
Yep. Okay. A British person living overseas, or an Irish person living overseas. Okay. EU citizens living in and working in the UK are not eligible. 2.04 million of which are not allowed to vote. People who this would impact the most were not allowed to vote. Now I've got no issue with not letting them vote, but why are Commonwealth members allowed to vote? Surely it should have been, all or none.
Yeah, I'm with you.
You know, so the rules were flawed to begin with. Now you might say that's okay. Oh, he's just being bitter and blah blah blah. It's not that.
You're bitter.
It's just I'm quite trying to question this. I'm trying to think.
No, quite right.
You know, like I don't see why it's okay for these immigrants that it doesn't affect, but the immigrants it does affect can't.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's either all or none in my view. That 2.4 million could have swung it. You know, 1.3 million was the difference between Remain and Brexit.
So more than likely it would have swung it.
Probably.
Have changed the outcome.
Yeah, it would have swung it. So I've got to question why that was allowed. I don't know who set the rules. PM.
I don't
Parliament?
know who set the rules. It would have been. I'm guessing there's legal professors who it is their job to be on top of this kind of constitutional, kind of European law, European kind of in these times, and the Tories who brought about this referendum would have consulted to get the kind of, and that would have been thrashed out in some committee somewhere to determine what was the best and who would be included in. I'm guessing that's how it works.
I can understand why they did it. You know, not allowing EU people living and working here not to vote is a case of like, oh well, why do they get a say? You know, that kind of logic. You know, well, you know, but they'll vote Remain. That means it's unfair for Leave. I can understand that kind of mentality, but again, why allow Commonwealth members to vote? Surely it should have been just if you're born in the UK. I
mean, there's it can be one or the other. It has to be a straight rule across the board.
Yeah.
Either folk coming in from the EU or folk coming in from the Commonwealth can vote, or people that are coming in from the Commonwealth or people coming in from the EU can't vote.
You've got to also bear in mind a lot of the EU people who are living here have done so for a long, long time.
And one of the things that gets me is the reality. The reality is when you leave your home and you travel somewhere else, you usually have a far bigger chip on your shoulder to succeed, a far bigger drive to actually make a go of things, because you don't have the family support, the community support, the language support, etc., etc. And most people that I remember going for a meal with an Indian guy. I was taking some pictures for them, for their products and stuff, and at the end of the day we went for a meal, and we went to this Indian restaurant in Leith, the end of Leith in Edinburgh, and again they were talking away, and the guy, we went into this restaurant, big fancy restaurant, and they shook his hand and they treated him well, and we all get fed, and I get fed, and I was like, this is pretty cool, man, because I was like in their community, if you like. I was taking pictures for these Indian guys, and again I went with 6 of them. We went to his friend's restaurant, and again this guy's a business owner, he's a business owner, and the guy that I was taking pictures for, he drove from India to Scotland in a car. He drove.
Wow.
He got a car and he drove from India to Scotland to make a new life. And funnily enough, after that epic journey and that determination to get here, he's now a very successful businessman. I was taking pictures of him for one particular branded product that he has, but he also has a distribution business, he owns restaurants, and this guy obviously had that drive, if you can, whereas somebody who's never been anywhere, travelled anywhere, seen anything, never been educated, and just has the hatred and the fear in their heart that somebody else they created this problem, it's them. But that is a product of the system. The system.
Yeah, oh totally. And who's most responsible for that system though? It's
us, individuals.
Yeah, exactly.
But how can you quickly change a system?
Oh yeah, upsetting the status quo. Yes, I know. You're
creating it smaller. No, I mean at a local level, the bureaucracy is real, and bureaucracy is always going to be real. But how can you affect change quickest? Why through time has people protested, and been strong, like black women on a bus in the US saying no, I'm not going to the back of I'm not going to the back of the bus. I'm sitting at the front of the bus, or women in England and Scotland chaining themselves to the carriage door saying no, we want a vote, we want or working class folks saying we want a vote, and you through these kind of processes of people, but that happens at a local level and spreads. I think as the EU gets bigger and bigger, as it's becoming bigger and bigger, and it has to become bigger, because that's the nature of the EU beast. It will have, just say 28 states, the centralised bank. Only 3, 4, 5 countries in the world don't have a centralised bank that's owned by the Rothschilds or these kind of elite Israeli kind of based families. They own the world. And this isn't a conspiracy. A lot of people, the world is about money, it's about finance.
It's a fact.
People finance both sides of wars. Transnational corporations don't know boundaries, don't know borders. And as you've said in the past, it's a race to the bottom. We will manufacture in China until it's too expensive. And there's a lot of companies now moving to Vietnam and Laos and places like this because it's cheaper. So, like, they can to get their manufacturing. But what happens when there's
you're on that countries
places left?
Exactly.
Who does the manufacturing?
Exactly.
And in an industry like yours, which is we don't manufacture, we just have services. It's like, what is a service when the shit hits the fan and there's nothing left? What is a service?
Exactly.
It's no real. It's bullshit. It's the way we print money out of thin air.
Yeah.
You go to get a mortgage and somebody types something on a keyboard, presses enter, and you've got £100,000.
Yeah.
Did they check that against the bank, against gold? Did they check it against an asset? No. They added it to their books in a positive sense, no a negative. It never went negative in the books, it went positive. It's like, how can that be?
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, and again, some of the arguments against leaving, I just want to get back to that.
I like to digress.
Oh, you do like to digress? It's because you like to stick it to the man. Right, contribution towards public spending, right? This is broken in. This is actually, so I'll tell you my sources on this. Dustman and Frattini, the fiscal effects of immigration to the UK, from the Economic Journal 2014, and Migration Watch, an assessment of fiscal effects of immigration to the UK 2014, right? And these are basically percentages of public spending covered in tax paid from 1995 to 2011. Okay, so non-EU, right, is between 80 and 85%. So that's like between 80 and 85% of how much they cost is covered by them, right? The EEA, European Economic Area, immigrants between 90 and 105%, and natives, which would be you and I, between 85 and 90%. So European Union immigrants, or European Economic Area immigrants, because that would include ones without the with the Union, like Norway and Switzerland, I believe. You're talking, they actually, depending on what the two sources you kind of listen to, they're either just short of paying for themselves or just above. So they're actually contributing more than people that are born here, on average. So for that as an argument for people to leave, like coming to take our jobs, you could maybe argue that for non-EEA members. You could.
Only people I've heard argue that are media sound bites broadcast on the television. I have not met any leave voter that I've personally met and discussed with that's used that argument, because it's a redundant argument. As you say, you bring back all the Scots from all over the world, and you'll still not have a job, because it's not about that. It's about you're looking for someone to
I mean, it's okay. It's a totally redundant argument, but I think you must know a lot more articulate Leave voters than I do. because I've had an argument or two with a few of them. And
change the calibre of people you're talking to here.
Well, yeah. It's true. It's true.
Or maybe you get out more and actually talk to people, whereas
no,
I'm a hermit.
No, I mean it's.
No, I understand there is a lot of people that have that bigoted, small-minded, closed kind of mentality where they think that again, people from Poland, Lithuania, Romania, etc. are coming here and they're taking their job. Now, there's a couple of things in from that perspective. Near enough every Polish person I have ever met, and I have a good family connection with the Polish guy called Dominic. Came over during the woodcraft. This is when we were young. Maybe I was 8, my brother was 12 or 14, something like that. Woodcraft is like a kind of international organisation, kind of outdoors, all that kind of good stuff. And a young troop came over from Poland and they stayed at the family house and that sort of stuff, and it was great. And then my brother went over to Poland. My brother's actually, he's either in Poland just now or he's just coming back from Poland, but he's on holiday in Poland. And that's like a lifelong friendship that they've had. And again, every Polish person I have met, because Dominic's really intelligent, and every Polish person that I've met since, I'm always like, what's your degree in? They're always like, economics, business administration. I'm like, you're a KP, you're a cleaner, you're working in a restaurant, you're doing some sort of manual plastering, whatever else, and you've got a business degree. I've got a master's degree. You're like, holy fuck, man. You're like, this is the thing. The education system in Poland, as an example, is brilliant. People are very clever, even at the kind of high school level. General knowledge, common sense knowledge is spot on. So, like, maybe that's a flaw with your system. We're producing a kind of substandard educational system now, where people are coming, and I bring it all back to the system. The system is flawed, but then I'm going to go the other side of the argument. The other side of the argument is when you have a high influx of skilled workers into an area, then just say a brickie was getting £14 an hour, then a high influx of other brickies, skilled, and the business people in that area, the Tory voters in that area,
drive the pay
will
down.
say, oh right, so we've got some guys in here, right, so now the going rate for a brickie's £8. What, you don't want to do it? I've got some guys here that'll do it. Alright, I'll take the £8. So, and that's again what the folk with power and money play on. That's no, the thing is, the guy in the street, he's blaming the guy, the Romanian guy or the Polish guy, because now he's taking a cut in the price, when it's it's the fucking business person who's got the cash, who's fucking both of over. But the thing is, people want to get angry at somebody, and the mass media tells us get angry at other working class folk because you're the fucking problem. No, us people with the power, we're not the problem. Us rich people are fucking not the problem. We are not the problem. Rich people are fucking awesome. Rich people are not the problem. We're not the problem. We control the media. We're not the problem. The rich people are the problem.
I agree. And basically the Westminster government facilitates them.
Of course.
And I'm not. I say Westminster government. It was exactly the same with New Labour. Sorry, you can't see the quotations, but I'm making quotations here. New Labour, when they were in charge, they were just bloody red Tories, and it's you're basically just again, like you were saying earlier, about Labour getting away from what they were founded upon. They're just it's basically it's a choice between Coke and Pepsi. One tastes slightly sweeter, but ultimately they're both going to make you fat.
Less bubbles.
Well, yeah.
Pepsi, I would say, is a bit sweeter, but less bubbles, and Coca-Cola is more carbonated and less sweet.
Yeah. Okay. You know your cola beverages. But anyway, so yeah, you're right. It's the system that's wrong, and part of me likes to think you could change the system within. Problem is.
Well, that's why I'm guessing you voted Remain, so that you could change the system from within.
Yeah, totally.
But it's easier to change a small system from within than it is to change a large system from within.
Correct.
A system that's got 3 tiers, if you like.
Yeah, totally.
Scotland,
but
Westminster, Brussels.
I just feel like we're running from the problem rather than confronting it, and to me,
So let me bring one step back. Changing the system from within. I've heard a lot of people saying that we're going to stay in Europe and we're going to change the system from within. So how does Joe Blogg's Facebook warrior, who's been into politics for 2 weeks, has read a couple of fucking articles from fucking whatever news system that they are signed up to, whatever kind of can is acceptable to them, how are they going to change the system from within when they're apathetic about everything? They've never done any activism. That, like, for instance, I don't do a lot, but I created myself a podcast to question things, to make people try and think, because I think this is my activism. I think when you start to question shit right in front of your face, then you start to go, alright, my curiosity from childhood is back. I've got to start reading, examining things. So that's my bit that I'm doing for to change the system. I'm getting people to... But how does people who claim that we're going to change the system from within change the system?
First step is getting educated, like you're saying. And that's the problem. Like, the way to beat these corrupt rich folk that are supposedly the bad guys, they're not. They're just looking out for themselves, as you probably would in their situation. But the way to basically stir things up is to outlearn them.
The pen is mightier than the sword.
Aye,
laws,
outlearn them.
accountancies.
Do a bit of homework. I mean, I spent a couple of hours last night just basically, taking down sources and things like that. Just so I had a bit of credibility behind my argument. Don't know if it's coming across that way, but
I think it is. I think that people listening will.
But the bottom line is and that's the big failing, and it's something that's definitely failing is in like Britain.
Social media culture.
Oh, aye, totally, yeah. YouTube culture as well. I mean, we're kind of
podcast culture. It's all the same.
Instead of watching films now, we watch a stupid little,
we hit the
YouTube video.
Solidarity like button. We changed the Facebook profile because the Facebook provides us with some auto picture overlay kind of thing, but when that's not available for another tragedy, we don't, because the auto overlay with that flag it's not been generated by our overlords, so we don't show solidarity to Turkey, for example.
To be honest with you, that solidarity thing's bullshit anyway. I mean, it's just
what I'm getting at is the kind of left or right.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. We're now in this world of social media where you like, comment, change profile pictures, repost videos of interest, etc. And that is you. You've seen the pictures of like a small African baby trying to eat the thumbs. Again, somebody's made a cartoon and he's trying to eat the thumbs, and he can't eat them because obviously liking something or having your opinion on Facebook, even having a podcast, essentially is fuck all. It's like I've been to, say my dad's a long time activist, been to like local meetings to film them and stuff for him when they're going up against the big corporate thingies that are trying to railroad a part of the town and build something, and they're saying no, you can't do that without consulting the people, and they're creating a roadblock in the system, and the opposition come in, the government and the big corporate come in with like 3 fancy lawyers with all the suits, and they're talking the lingo, and like folk like my dad saying, can we just stop a minute? I mean, we're just folk. Can we dress down the language? Stop trying to baffle us with your language. We've got a grasp of what's happening. You need to this is not a kind of one-way educated whitewash as you think it's going to be, but you need to talk to that kind of community level activism is the stuff that's happening, and very much few and far between. I've only seen it because my dad's an activist, but apart from that, you don't see anybody getting involved in local issues. Can people think chanting some shit on Facebook is changing the world, changing the system from within. No, to change the system for that, you have to have boots on the flare. You need to be going to local meetings, getting yourself involved, writing letters to your MPs, going to meet them, kind of hassling them, hassling business owners, kind of members of parliament, local councillors, writing to people, again, doing your one-man protest, getting people together, creating groups. The thing is, it takes a lot of time.
Yep.
It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy, and people are going to look at you kind of strange. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what it takes to them. But most people aren't willing to do that.
True.
Like me and you, we're not doing that.
No, we're not doing that. I mean,
but yet we want to change the system.
Yeah.
So the reality is we're almost like bodybuilders that we sit and watch fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger's pumping iron all day long. We talk the chat about creatine and fucking this and this supplement and that supplement and the diet and this, but we've never actually stepped in a gym. We've never even done a kind of like a self-home workout, then push-ups and squats and these sort of stuff. We're just talking the talk and shiting it on fucking Facebook, and that's what's happening. People aren't actually engaged in politics, but that's what the overlords want. They want people to think they've got a fucking choice, they've got a finger in, they're on the pulse, they're doing their bit. When the reality is, hey, you're doing fucking jack shit, buddy. Jack shit. You're not even involved in politics.
It's true, because I mean, trying to change like a Remainer's mind about how to vote and like a Brexiter's mind how to vote is basically like beating your head against a brick wall. Yeah. They've already made their mind up, and they're in they're sort of in kind of this, they're in their way of thinking. Cognitive dissonance. Basically, they're just not open to any kind of new information.
So your parent, I don't know your parents, but just as an example, just say they're Protestant, and you grew up in a Protestant household, and you were fairly religious, and you went to the church and all that sort of stuff. Most people in that kind of environment, by the time they get to 20, they can identify as a Protestant, and they go to church and that sort of stuff. You grew up in a Muslim household, by the time you get to 20, most people will be identify that sort of thing. There's a lot to be said with politics and your household and your environment, and if you've been brought up in a household that's never been, you've never been asked to question in it and to think for yourself, to read, or that's the one good thing about a degree. It's not the fact of the quality of the bit of paper, but it's the bit where you're forced to take an opposing view or argument, or you've got to back up your own thing, and you've actually got to back it up. You've got to provide sources and different opinions and ideas and cite where you got this stuff. You can't just talk shite. You've got to I can talk this shite because this and this and this I've said this shite can be talked.
Last thing, I think probably because the reason I kind of question more than some is probably because my upbringing. My mum was Protestant, my dad was Catholic, but they both kind of binned their religions, before they got married, because they didn't buy it in the first place.
It should be binned.
But hey, people can believe what they want as long as they keep it themselves. That's fine by me.
I like that because I think there's so many different layers of, say, Christianity, in the sense of, at one level, I think there's a lot of people, like, comparing it to Santa. A lot of people think like Jesus is like Santa, he's real, he's all these kind of things, and then you go to the next level. There's a lot of Christians that think he's not quite real, but there's like a unifying entity, and it's about the parables. It's no literal, it's the stories. And then there's the next level where there's some sort of like Holy Ghost, kind of indistinguishable energy, which is God, which kind of is a part of everything. But it's they're all 3, 4, 5, or around about 7, 8, 9,000 different ways of interpreting the Bible are all interpreting the same words.
Yeah.
And you can see that the same with politics. I mean, here's something just as complicated. European Union, Westminster, Scottish politics, super complicated, loads of variables, but yet we've dressed it down to in or out. racist or non-racist, uneducated or educated, troglodyte or
I think what bothers me as well is how campaigns are run. I think we need to sort of really address that, because it's effectively coming down to what America is doing with it being a personality contest. I think we need to get, for example, while you've got your leaders' debates, why not have an economics expert there who's not aligned to any one party? Have like a health expert? Have have
engineering, manufacturing,
legal, have a legal expert. Have people, who
a media spin expert that can decipher the shite when they're spinning it at you.
Exactly. Treat it like Britain's Got Talent.
Yep.
Have your
panel.
Have your panel of people that buzz in. And in fact, give them a buzzer, right? And it goes, do that, right? And it's like, right, 3 strikes, you're out.
We want to refute that claim that you've just made there. I do believe that's an outdated source, and that the data is actually since 2015 stating this. Please continue. So, that folk can't just make these wild claims of getting £350 million, and it goes to the EU, and when we leave the EU, it will go to the NHS. Nothing is that simple.
Nope.
Anywhere.
Nope.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So I mean that's exactly what we should do. We should, have your panel, your adjudicators. Am I saying that right? Yeah. Or vigilators. Have people, who are knowledgeable.
Who watches The Watchmen? I suppose that's where it comes down to. I mean, these adjudicators in this panel.
Well, that's the problem, yeah.
So if it's a BBC televised event or a Channel 4 televised event, well, there's somebody's paying for that event to be hingweed. So then the people who are paying for it, who's their affiliations, who's their backing? And that's one of the problems with media being the way media is, because people like Rupert Murdoch, if it's on one of his channels and being broadcasted through his system, he's obviously wanting the panel of experts to be aligned with his kind of way of thinking, which can subtly change the info coming across. And I suppose that's when you see like a murderer getting tried, and you get 2 lawyers. They're both experts. They're both very knowledgeable. They both have the ability to stop the other one in their tracks and make. But yet one of them knows that person is guilty or not guilty, and the other one doesn't know. Essentially, but yet they're going at their best to prove one or the other. So.
But that's the thing. I think like our platform, like the platform that like politicians have, right? It's always prime time, television, for the debates, right? Now, like whenever a financial expert or something, or like an expert in law or something like that, whenever they've been interviewed regarding this sort of campaign, it was always like as a bit in the news or something like that. So they don't have the platform. So to me, that's the whole point of having your panel there. Is they're on the same platform as the the politicians. So they're getting their view is being heard. So at least you've got an analytical view to go along with the the sort of the political bullshit.
I understand what you're saying. How it's that classic, how does that not become corrupted, because obviously, just say for instance that there is everything is, but just like there is a leave vote and there was a leave and there was a remain, there could quite amicably be a TV channel which has a leave panel of experts, a lawyer, this, and they have the same kind of politicians up there, and you leave that channel thinking,
But
one or the other, and then you go to the other channel and it's the complete opposite.
Yeah,
and that's
but-
what happens in America. You
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
I mean?
true.
There's these very defined Fox News and Ken that are like they're just so like one-sided. It's unreal.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
the filter is clear. And
No,
they're very on about their filter. They know that the filter's there, and they're so blatant about it.
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I definitely agree. Yeah, unfortunately, everyone is liable to corruption.
Or furthering their agenda. If
further-
they're
yeah,
big
further.
multinational, transnational combination with fingers in it, every
Yeah.
pie.
Yeah, I mean, you probably have a better chance with academics. You know, they're probably less likely to be corrupted.
I don't know about that. If you just look at science, science is one of the most corrupt things ever. Like, again, scientists are supposed to be curious. They're supposed to, again, take information, ask the questions, put forward a theory, create experiments to equate the theory, run it multiple times until they get the data, and if it works, it works. It's a scientific fact. When in reality, scientific grants are very hard to come across. You leave uni with your master's degree and you need a job, and the next thing you know, you're doing a scientific study to say that nicotine and tobacco is good for you because it's been funded by somebody, and there's a big big wad of cash went into it, and you're getting 30 grand a year, and I'm just a lab guy. I'm just a lab guy, but you're working towards certifying that Alzheimer's is in no way related to sugar, or cannabis has no bearing on having any effect on autism, and you can do that scientifically, but yet is it the actual science that you signed up for to be curious when you were like looking at stars and all that kind of stuff? No, it's just corporate slavery, and what is it, intellectual prostitution.
Yeah, so basically we're all lying fuckers, and
Man, I'm a pessimist.
I know, and we're doomed.
Unless we get a Star Trek community, then we can shout Errol Grey.
Yeah, but
Thoughts?
even Star Trek, you know, basically all Star Trek done was trade, you know, like peace on Earth for war in the galaxy. So
Don't you come onto this podcast and diss Star Trek. I think no, Star Trek has 100 flaws, but it's easier to say Star Trek, i.e., kind of resource-based economy, than actually going into what resource-based economy is.
it isn't really a resource-based economy as well. Cause
No,
you still
it's
have
not.
you still have your
The Federation is,
you still have your
in a
status,
sense.
especially on Kirk's ship. Your red shirts get, you know,
Well, they
basically get killed left, right, and centre. So
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah,
That's my Halloween costume every year is a red shirt.
is it?
Yeah.
Nice.
And I change my facial, my alien, if you like, head in different mask or a different colour of skin, but I always wear a red shirt, black trousers. Because it's just going to die. I think, like, not to be a pessimist, but to be an optimist. There shouldn't be any national boundaries or borders. We're all born under the sun. The human brotherhood, etc., is just a fancy computer, I think, running different software. The software being it culture, history, language, ethics, religion, science, all these different things is just a software running on a computer. And because of that, and in the area in which you were born, you never chose to be born, but the area you chose to be born, the pigmentation is just a reaction to sunlight and different strengths of sunlight, and your body's production of vitamin B or vitamin D. Vitamin D. So these are just biological byproducts of the biological machine. We're all born under the sun. We do have to get away from the whole idea of national borders and all that sort of stuff, but at the same time, you need to create a utopia somewhere for people to see that the thing is possible. And that utopia can hopefully then spread when people see, holy wow, we could spend the same amount of money on that warship that we just sent into the Gulf of wherever to kill loads of people. We could have sent the same size of ship but equipped with 100 doctors we can water filtration systems, with educators, and they could have went into the same fucking place and helped loads of people, showed them how to farm, showed them how to train their doctors and nurses, trained their educated people, and then it went to the next port, and instead of blowing them up with a £200,000 Tomahawk missiles, or however much they cost, they went in there and they educated the can. That is a possibility. It costs the same, probably costs less than it would to cost to send a warship in and to train a soldier. It probably costs them. Elite soldiers, it's probably cheaper to train a doctor than an elite soldier. But why do we know? Corporate greed, transnational.
No, there's it's been proven there is money to be made from war, or not so much the war, but the rebuilding of places afterwards,
and war itself. There's a lot of money.
Arms and
hardware is expensive, especially if you're selling to both sides, and it's also it's a very fast paced industry. Like in mobile telephones, every year you get a new mobile phone with a better processor and all the rest of it. Now, every year the 3 or 4 main arms manufacturers, their competitor comes up with a slightly better way of telecommunication jamming, a particular better way of pinpointing for sending their missiles, or a better radar system, a better camouflage. It's such a fast paced industry that, again, it's why it's the biggest industry on earth, military industrial complex. And that's why it's not going anywhere until people get together and realise that the war is not the industry that humans should be in.
Yeah, true. But you've got to give credit to the EU. It sort of fulfilled its primary purpose, which was basically no wars between the nations involved. I don't think we've been at war, have we? Anyone's been at war within the EU? Politically, maybe. But
no, it's a very valid point. But I think in terms of time frame,
it's too early to tell.
I think 40 years is a short period. Within the last 100 years, we've essentially seen 2 of the largest wars.
Mm-hmm.
That ever was, but we've also seen a number of smaller battles or wars, invasions. But again, the reason that we're not fighting amongst us a lot of times now is because we realise
folk elsewhere.
No, because we need the resources elsewhere. We've done all that kind of resource battling. The whole world now runs on oil, it runs on drugs, and it also runs on rare earth elements, which are in all modern day electrical and electronic manufacturing. And China owns and controls a stranglehold on 90% of the world's rare earth elements. So places like Afghanistan has fantastic rare earth element resources in their mountains.
Yep.
So it's a great place to go and
invade.
But that Chilcote report was released today.
Yep.
And he basically 2 million pages over budget, over time, all the rest of it, has concluded that basically we went in there on false promise, a false premise. Mm-hmm. They knew that the army was weak. They knew that Saddam was weak, because after the second, but after the basically 9/11, the realisation that the plane hijackers were Saudi Arabian, and Saudi Arabia is our second biggest ally in that region and one of the biggest suppliers of oil in that area, and one of the other biggest providers of oil in the world is Iraq. So it made sense for them to say, well, we won't attack you if you step aside and allow us to go in there and just finish what we've done and control that. And that's what you can argue the First and Second World Wars were about as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it went very well for us, didn't it?
It's still going well for us.
Yeah, we've got peace enough time. Oh wait, no, we don't.
There's a Facebook meme, and I've talked about it on the podcast a number of times before. The whole idea of the story of stuff, how it's like, oh, life is good for us, and we have like your fancy phone and all that sort of stuff. But like that fancy phone has killed people in West Africa who mined the cobalt or the whatever it was for the chassis. It's killed people in Mexico who people in China, manufacturers in China that are wearing adult diapers because they're not allowed a shift break.
Yeah.
They work 16 hours straight and they have to wear a diaper because we want our goods at a particular price point, because the people who are selling it have to make a profit margin. Now our system is completely flawed, but our system is based upon people who look at other people as a commodity. Their value is no, as a human, their value is you're 10 a penny. And that has to change. Like the EU has to change, because the EU, one of the big things that they is the regulations of big businesses. Big businesses, you would think, I was saying about this in the last podcast, you would think they would want to be unregulated, but in fact they want all the regulations that are put upon them by the EU. They want them put through. They want them put through good and fast and strong and heavily regulated.
Stops people coming up and challenging them. Yeah,
it means if I want to create a new video camera, because I've been using particular video cameras for years, and I've got this great idea for a new system, and then I go to look at how do I put this through, how do I get my technology sanctioned, and can go through the channels, and I find out that to get the new processor, the new optics, after the research and development, just to get the bit of paper that says that this fits the standard, cost me £284,000, and I go, holy shit, don't have that cash. Canon have that cash, Nikon have that cash, Panasonic have that cash, Samsung have that cash. Wee Joe Vlogs with some great ideas, he doesn't have that cash, so then they have to go to like Samsung and wherever else and try and do a deal and attempt to sell their product probably at a lower rate and sign off their rights. And that's the EU's went that route, which can only mean a bigger, tighter web of corporate elite rulership and a quicker race to the bottom.
Who's to say Brexit Britain will not be exactly the same?
No, for sure, 100%. But this is the thing which a lot of people have to realise is the future is not written. And if you're willing to stay within the European Union and attempt to change it from within, they'd have that same optimism and that same drive to stay within Britain or Scotland and change the system from within, from negative to positive. Just because we're out of Europe doesn't mean the fight is over. Stay within the system that you're in, now that the system has voted, and we are where we are, but that doesn't mean give up. I mean, if you're fighting for a better world in Europe, fight for a better world in Britain. If you're fighting for a better world in Britain, fight for a better world in Scotland. If you're fighting for a better world in Scotland, fight for a better world within your community. Don't just these lofty Europe, Brussels, it's that far away, it's that discontinued. That's why people are so keen to fight for it, because the reality is when they have to do something within their own community, go round to the community centre, speak to their neighbour, they're like, hey, is that what it's about? Communicating with people and doing some good in your community. Or they're like, hey, I never signed up for this. Never signed up for going and moving the trash for the end of the road, or neighbourhood watch, or getting into the
apathy.
Apathetic masses. Personal responsibility is how things change, and that's a good thing I like about religion. Every religion preaches that. It's worship, and it starts for the individual. It's a personal one-on-one connection with whatever the divine is, be it real or unreal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's personal responsibility. Sure, you can. It's only between you and God, and everything else is a hangway. But you're going to be the best you can. So who cares what other people think about you? Just go out there and be that person that you can. And do the positive. Feed the homeless. Go and take your old clays and walk around Glasgow and give your old jacket to somebody and can feed them and can, as opposed to, oh, what will people think if I do this? Because a lot of people are in that kind of world. They're too busy about thinking about
their own image.
Image, aye. Paying for the latest BMW car, again, it's costing them 3 times the amount for their mortgage, and fucking can't do nothing because their outgoings are so high because they've got the big fancy house with 4 bedrooms and there's only one of them, and they're driving a Land Rover which is on hire purchase at X amount a year, month, whatever. And it's that kind of mentality, you know. I mean, again, homeless person, or there was a good video I watched on Facebook activism, social media.
Oh yeah.
It's a young girl, and she's about 6 or 7, and they dress her up with all the Gucci good gear. She's looking good, in terms of she's clean, her hair slicked back, she's got a wee bit of makeup on, that kind of stuff. And she walks about like a restaurant, she walks about in the town, she walks about in the high street, and everybody's like, "Oh, you okay? Are you lost? Are you this, you that?" Same lassie, tatty trousers, scruff up her hair, bit of makeup at this time to make her look dirty and that sort of stuff. Shove her into the restaurant, get away, fuck off, garçon, get this again. In the street, putting by, kicking her, that kind of stuff. And then you have the kind of at the end, it's talking about, you know, it's a child. You should treat a child like a child. It is the matter if the and that's kind of a big part of our society, is these perceptions about.
Well, perception that the poor are dirty, horrible, unwashed masses.
And she's there to scrounge, and she doesn't have emotions, and she isn't scared because.
No.
And the thing was, she was an actress, and she was 6 or 7. She was an actress, but they had to stop the filming. Because when she was in the restaurant, and so quite nastily, the wee lassie just broke down in tears because obviously being an actor, she was actually quite affluent parents and all the rest of it, and they've said, "My kid's an actor, we'll get her to be an actress," and this is the job that came up, and they got paid for it, and so they send the kid in, and the kid's going to deal with it quite rightly so. The reality of how other
people treat
live when you're poor, you're dirty, and I think that's a big part. Bring it back to EU. There's a lot of poor folk, a lot of communities that have fucking hit the ground, that don't have the infrastructure, and they're angry, and they're saying to fucking Westminster time and time again, we are here. Our coal industry disappeared, our steel industry's disappeared, our major manufacturing's disappeared.
But
we're here, we're still here.
Yeah, but look, that's the thing. EU probably not responsible for most of that.
I know, but
that's the thing. You know what I'm saying? It's to me, a lot of the Brexit vote was, a protest vote against basically the way things are, the establishment, the way things are, by the working class and the poor.
It can't get any worse. That's a key thing I've heard a lot of times. The working class and communities like places like Doncaster, it can't get any worse.
Oh, it can.
I know, of course it can. But like when you're looking at a media system which is based in London, and you're seeing affluence time and time again, it's almost like the Hunger Games. You know what I mean? You get the TV televised, and everybody's wearing their fancy clobber, and life is fantastic. They're eating 20 pigeon pies, and it's like medieval times, and then you get folk that are literally undereducated. Like for instance, the town I grew up, Irvine in Ayrshire, there's places where the life expectancy's in the low 50s. And you go literally a mile down the road and the life expectancy's in the high 70s. So that kind of inequality of a 20-year life expectancy, now that's real inequality, and that's due to loads of social factors which obviously influence that, down to education, wealth, all these kind of things. and that's within a small town in the west coast of Scotland. That kind of inequality is ripe in society, but nobody wants to talk about it. Like the fact that how can there be in some parts of the country a life expectancy of 50, in other places a life expectancy near 80. You know, some of the very affluent, wealthy places, just outside London, you're talking 80 years of age. You know what I mean? And then you go into an inner city estate in London, and there could be again 50. That to me is the system doesn't work, or the system is working, but it's working for the folk it should be working for.
Well, it's true. I mean, the problem is you're always going to have inequality to a degree. You're always going to have it to a degree, because ultimately you've got to have people. You know, in a capitalist society, you've got to have people at the top end and people at the bottom end. Now, what we can control is the gulf between the two. And right now, the gulf is out of control. You know, the rich people are way too rich, and the poor people are way too poor. But what how we go about addressing it? You know, again, you can't. Yeah, you just got to be vocal, and that's where I think a lot of the kind of the poor working class are, too apathetic to actually do anything about it, including ourselves. Because I earn less than the average wage.
Oh no, same here. You know, I mean, if you're spending 12 hours a day grafting away, doing a mechanical, manual job, you maybe don't have the luxury of time that somebody like me has.
Well, that's true.
I work a lot less, but I earn a lot less. But I suppose that's the nature of my business. You know what I mean?
Well, you earn more per
hour,
unit of your time.
But I work a lot less
frequently.
So like that's a thing of, for me, I suppose, privilege due to education, due to skill level, due to the background that I was brought up in, that ability to believe in myself. I was always encouraged to believe in myself, to believe that I had value and worth, and that I could do things like write a book or create a podcast, or I was always you can do these things. If you want to do it, go and do it. Whereas a lot of people, they're never encouraged to believe that they are just as powerful as anybody else born under the sun. That's one of Steve Jobs. My favourite quote of Steve Jobs, even though he created Apple and Apple are for cunts, was if you look about you, whatever you look at and whatever you're inspired by, it was created by another human no greater than you. Yeah. So everything is possible, but you need to work like a bastard to fucking do it. You know what I mean?
See, I mean, I don't buy that. All rich people are cunts as well. And that's what a lot of. No, that's what. So we'll just pause that there. Yeah. Got someone at the door.
So, yep, it just had to be somebody at the door there, but that's, where were we?
Yeah. Rich people aren't all cunts. And it's true. I mean, take Bill Gates. He's given up his career. He's decided he's made enough money, and now he's giving back.
Is it by killing people with vaccines? I think Bill Gates is one of the biggest cunts on earth.
You really think so?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, completely. I think he's one of the. He wants to take the population down. Oh no, for sure he is evil.
If you say so.
Well, yeah, I don't have to say so. I'm just putting that out there. You do your own research, you do your own thinking, but there's loads of information online. There's other, there is rich people that are genuinely kind of good, but the other side of that, I mean, how does somebody get rich? How does Bill Gates get rich?
Well, yeah, you've got to have some kind of, you've got to kind of compromise ethically quite a lot.
And you, for instance, Bill Gates must know that one of the main reasons why he's manufacturing the discs for his software when it was all disc orientated, or the cardboard printing, etc., in China or Vietnam, is because of the price point there. It means that the profit margins can go up,
but
then he's feeding the machine. To say I've made 150,000 people's lives shite over here, but in that country, comparison to other people in that country, their standard of living was A-OK. But then I'll take that money that I took from them and made profit from them, and I'll take it out here, and then I'll give it to the poor people here and say, oh, look, I'm a good guy, I'm a philanthropist.
You've got to look at it, though. You've got to look at it to, like, just me in my everyday life, for example, I shop at Primark. Stuff that's made there is made, for pennies.
Bangladeshi kids,
yeah, I mean,
6-year-old.
Exactly, exploiting child labour. So, you've got to kind of, it's not just rich people's responsibility, it's all of us that are feeding the machine.
It's the exact same with politics, it's personal responsibility.
Yeah, so...
I'm the same.
We're all part of the problem. Everyone.
I am in no way exempt from this problem. No, I mean, I buy loads of, and I am one of these people. A lot of time, I'll go out my way to get the cheapest thing I can, or to find a product that's made in China because it's of a similar quality, but it's a lot cheaper. Like we're all in the same. If you have £100 to spend, and you know that's kind of putting electricity, it's gas, it's food, it's this, and you've got to get the stuff you need to do the job that you need to do and make a profit, then you can. We're all at the bottom. We're in it together. But I think a lot of times when we look at rich people, we have this kind of idea nowadays that, because the media tells us they're philanthropists, they're like, these are like, a lot of good guy like Elon Musk. Let's celebrate Elon Musk because he's a clever guy, and he's doing SpaceX, and he's created PayPal, and he's created electric cars, electric Tesla, and everybody's like fucking Elon Musk. The guy's a cunt. Let's get real. You know what I mean? He created a fucking online system where you could send cash via your email, and it was secure PayPal. He made fucking billions, right? He made billions. So did he give that money away? Did he reduce the amount of, like, I sold a phone on eBay, it cost me 15 quid. It cost me 15 quid because Elon Musk created fucking PayPal, and then the other side of that argument is you wouldn't be able to sell it. There wasn't PayPal. But at the same time, he's creating fucking electric cars. People are like, oh, electric cars. Electricity still has to be produced. Or energy still has to be produced. Be it in the engine, at the car, or be it by a nuclear power source, a wind farm, whatever. But the electricity has to be produced, or the power, to power the car. The petrol engines are generally 18 to 22% efficient. Nuclear power stations are usually about 15% efficient. So the amount of energy that you're getting from the big power station and then transporting it to your battery in the car, it's just as efficient as your petrol. The problem is big corporations that have the money could invest and create engines that are 80% efficient, that could create electrical systems that are more efficient, etc. But they don't. They want a lot of wastage in the energy and the throughput because they make more money. And Tesla, Elon Musk, he's got to save the world. He's not going to save the world. He's a cunt. There's very few. There's $4 and change. You seen that one?
No.
He's a rich guy. Now, there's an example, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's an example of a really cool rich guy. He made a really shitty fucking energy drink called 4 Hour Hit or something like this. And it's basically like a Red Bull but mini, and they sell it at the garages on the counter, so it's like picking up chewing gum for us. A wee energy shot, 4 hour shot or something it's called. Obviously it's full of sugar and caffeine and all negative things. And he made 4 billion profit from that product, and then he said to himself, I've got 4 billion in change, what am I going to do? I'm a fucking rich motherfucker. He says, I'm going to change the world. It's very noble. How do you change the world? You change the world, this is what he concluded. Electricity, because it's an enabler. When you give people electricity, the ability, they can grow food, they can communicate, etc. Clean water, so a process of taking salinated water from the coast and making it fresh and cheap, and health. And he created a heart pump. With the clean energy, he created a carbon fibre, but made out of the one atom thick carbon that's amazing conductivity. It's called graphene.
Right. Okay.
He created a graphene rope, a rope from graphene, but the whole idea, you dig a hole in the ground deep enough and it's naturally hot.
Mm-hmm.
A graphene rope goes in at the bottom and there's absolutely no loss in energy throughput in the middle of the rope. It's like an optical fibre cable.
Yeah.
All the heat gets transmitted to the other side. So you've basically got an infinite tap. He transferred all the patents to Singapore because it's a neutral place. Hang with the oil there, because in America he said I'd be getting shot for this.
Mm-hmm.
He created a big flywheel, kind of gearing system, where basically people can convert it for their what do you call it, like bicycle parts and stuff. But the flywheel allows you to cycle for an hour and generate 24 hours of electricity. He created all these kind of, and he hired boffins, no MIT master's degrees. He hired boffins, tinkerers, people who thought outside the box, and he said, "I've got loads of cash and got to change the world." And while he's thinking, he came up with ideas. Bill Gates, did he come up with some fucking radical ideas to create free energy because it's an enabler?
Not really, no.
To give water, drinking water, because that's a real fucking enabler. Or the health thing. His health thing was the major problem that health for everybody is the heart. The heart's the key thing. It's the thing that pumps.
Yeah.
So he created, it's like a kind of arm pressure thing that you get for your arms.
Yeah.
But for the thighs, and it's got a wee device that hangs with your beat. So as this beats, it beats right after. Beat, and what it does is it pumps the blood back up. Because as you get older, the ability to get the blood back up,
your circulation diminishes.
Diminishes. So it's about getting, just allowing the heart to do what it does, but for longer. And changing people's lives, reversing shit. No with the diet, no with the thing, just with the tinkerers and it's a fantastic documentary, 4 billion and change. But he literally trying to change the world. Whereas you're kind of like that Steve Jobs, when he was dying, he wrote a big thing about his regrets, in terms of family, in terms of doing things, about using his drive to do something positive. Because at the end of the day, creating fancy bits of tech in your hand,
overpriced fancy bits of tech, I might add.
Well, we can. It's good that you're a non-Apple user, so we can bash Apple. I think Apple as a product is pretty fantastic in terms of the fact that they create the hardware and the software, and they can. So some of the performance things they can get. I'm just talking about like their own software and their own hardware. Not talking about third party. On tap, but their own software and hardware. The tap iPhone, I think at the minute has 2 gig of RAM. Now the top Samsung has 4 gig of RAM, but yet their performance is pretty similar. So their ability to create a symbiotic relationship between the software and the hardware is really good. But most of the times you're not running Apple software, you're running a third party software, and it is CPU, RAM,
and don't get me started on connectivity to other devices.
Is there connectivity issues?
Well, not if you've got an Apple cable that'll convert a signal to work with Apple, But don't get me wrong. The real genius of Apple has been in their marketing. Their marketing is fantastic, and their design, the product design is excellent. However, under the hood, they're not any more amazing than
Well, their laptops and their desktops are definitely not.
They're not.
Nowadays they're Intel based.
Yeah.
So this is the exact same.
That's
stuff,
why
you can get a Hackintosh. Like you can buy a Hackintosh which is as powerful as your MacBook Pro. It doesn't look like a MacBook Pro.
You can even run the software.
Runs the software perfectly, and it's £400 as opposed to £1,400, and it's got 16 gig of RAM. It's got kind of SSD drive. It's got Intel i7. It's got all the key factors of your top of the line MacBook Pro, and it's £400.
Yep.
It's like
no brainer.
Aye, what am I going to buy?
But you don't get that shiny white box.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Bummer.
But it's got like a wee apple on it.
I remember, and I probably said this to you before, when I was at university and you're studying away and I could edit, I'm guessing, just like you could.
Yes.
And there's people in your class that don't know how to edit and stuff, and you're saying to them, look, it's easy, just go on YouTube, download an illegal crack copy of the software, go on YouTube and learn.
Yep.
It takes time, but you'll get it. And one lassie in my class says, but I don't have a MacBook. I said, no, sorry, you're not understanding this. Editing's just a bit of software. There's hundreds of them, different hobbies. Yeah. Some of them are free, some you pay for. If you've got any kind of computer, you just fire it on. But I don't have an Apple. Okay.
Yeah, it's because in that industry, it was basically beaten into your skull that I think editing was done on apples.
But I think at a base level, she thought any kind of form of creativity can only be done
on an apple.
On an apple. Like, it was literally like, no, it's most of it is third party software that runs on Windows, Mac OS or Linux.
Yeah, I've been defiantly against Apple since I think my first day of uni, and it's mainly because of Apple owners. They have this air of superiority about them.
Oh no, for sure. They're almost like Remain.
well. So to me, it's almost like Brexit. So, but no, Apple owners are a different tale.
I thought that was good there.
Yeah, I'm glad you entertained yourself. Apple owners are a special kind of arrogant.
It's not usually the iPhone users, because iPhone is just a kind of. But it's mainly when it comes to the
MacBook and the
desktop,
the Mac desktop. Yeah, oofed. Don't get me started on them.
Well, I think me personally, say this is all getting recorded on a PC, and it's all about, for me, I use the Adobe suite.
I do too.
And Adobe runs on Mac OS and on Windows. So when you're looking at, okay, that's running on top of my operating system, what can I buy for the cash I've got? So I've got X amount of hundreds of quid I need for. We both run media companies. We both need serious bits of kit to process video, to process all the kind of crunching that we need it to do. Therefore, you put your money on a table and you say, what hardware can I get? What is the best CPU, the best graphics card, the best motherboard and throughput to the hard drives, and the best, the most amount of RAM, and that I can get for this cash on the table. And when you compare that to what you can get for Apple to run the same Adobe suite, it's night and day. Like, the computer I'm running just now would have cost about $4,000 for Mac, where it cost me 800 quid. So
yeah, totally. And it's just because you spend a lot of money on something doesn't necessarily make it better.
Oh, shiny toys. Magpie mentality. Because of shiny toys doesn't mean you know how to use it.
Yeah. And also, how much you spend on your loved ones doesn't mean you love them any more or less.
And that's I don't know how to relate that to the Brexit argument.
No, this is totally.
We have kind of went off on a tangent, but that's good. That's good, because a lot of the podcasts,
they do go off on a
tangent at the end. But I think, just to sum up the old Brexit, Remain Brexit, I think if we look at, just in summing up and closing, is there was a vote. It was a very close vote, 48 to 52.
Yep, nearly half and half.
So democratically, there's a lot of disgruntled people on both sides, because the vote is obviously, it has to be.
And also there's a lot of disgruntled people with the behaviour of the individuals who won.
Yeah, of course.
Afterwards, like the mass resignations.
Yeah.
Boris not running for PM. Basically, disappearing off the face of the earth.
Farage
resigning, although to be honest, he fulfilled his goals. So
And he resigns every year anyway. So.
that's true. He'll be back. He might. Yeah. Did you see the photo on Facebook of basically like the new sort of front runner for the leadership of UKIP? And it's basically Farage when someone's just photoshopped glasses and a moustache on him.
I think he will be back, but they have all left, and again,
Nobody wants to pull the trigger. That's the thing. Nobody wants that responsibility.
I know for sure, and that is, but that's again. So where we are just now is it was a democratic process of some description. The Remain and the Leave. We voted to leave. We'll have to hit an Article 50. This is some European legal. It's the legal switch that allows the 2 year.
It's the red button.
So it's the red button that allows the 2 year process to take place. When the 2 year process so after the red button is pressed, the 2 year process is when we can have discussions, legality, etc., and get new systems in place, bring back everything that we need. But during that 2 year that we can actually have the discussions, Europe have quite clearly said the discussions are not happening. You're not coming to the table until you press the button. There'll be no discussion over what you're entitled to, how this is going to work legally and otherwise until...
Quite right, shit or get off the pot.
That's it, right? So that's where we are just now. The future could be very bright. I think the reality is we're leaving Europe. So people have to deal with that. That's the first thing.
Yep.
The future could be very bright. As we've discussed, if we've discussed here, if we take personal responsibility and stop being an apathetic nation, and we have that same mentality, both Remain and Leave, to the ideals of we can change the system from within. So we need to, at a local level, either domestically within the UK or at a smaller national level, if Scotland does become independent, to change the system and make positive individual change for humanity and human kind of things, and get these corporate fucktards, these elite power hungry bastards out the system, and make a more just, fair system. Again, that's the options that are on the table.
What's your thought on IndyRef 2? Do you think it's a definite goer?
I don't know if it's a definite goer. There's definitely a lot of
well, I mean, based on the vote in Scotland, right? You've got
70% to 30, or 68 to 32. 68 Remain.
No, it was 62 Remain, 38 Leave.
Was it 38? 68, I thought it was.
So roughly, right? Let's roughly say two thirds to 1/3, right? So with that, right?
I'm straight away. I'm going to say I want an IndyRef 2 because I want independence. You follow my logic. I'm looking for the smallest nation state possible. So I want Scotland to be independent of Westminster and independent of the
Europe.
EU, and then from that place we can create a system, because a lot of people can think our politics is very to the left, but it is more left than a lot of places in England.
That's the problem.
We do have a lot of Tories and right in Scotland,
yep.
But the way our political system is set up, that again a lot of their voices don't get heard, which is good. So we have to then rejiggle a system.
Yeah.
When you become, and this is one of the realities as well, if we had become independent when we voted for independence, this shit would have hit the storm last year.
Yeah.
The pound would have plummeted, the this, the that, this stuff would have happened then, and people would have been like fucking
yeah.
Change is about disruption.
Yeah.
So, and the system has to get disrupted. Unfortunately, people are scared of change. Yeah. They're scared of big risk. The potential for a greater future is there. Whether we grab it or the other option is we allow the far right to creep in with a racist, bigoted craziness, and that's that.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, you're right. Exactly what you're saying. Like, if we did break up the UK, it would have, the shit would have hit the fan. And the thing is, I'm not too worried about the economy. I mean, that will bounce back. It's already started. The pound's already started recovering. I'm not overly worried about it. It's just, I think what really bothers me is how the people who were responsible for putting us there in the first place have just basically washed their hands of it, and just the lack of planning, with the EU referendum, just the lack of, with the Indy referendum, you had your 500-page, white paper, right? This is how we're going to go about it. It may have been complete and utter toilet paper, but
they produced one.
They still produced one. They actually went to the effort of actually putting some data down. And basically this just seems to be poorly thought out.
So you remember when we had the Indy ref, and a lot of people down south labelled a lot of people in Scotland as racists, as nationalists, national kind of neo-Nazi like nationalism has gripped Scotland, all this kind of stuff, and it's almost the exact same rhetoric. Like, I know a guy who voted Leave, who voted out in the Scottish referendum, and his whole argument for voting Leave was essentially the Indy campaign for voting for independence. It was the exact same. I was like, did you just go back a year, get all my Facebook posts, hang me them out to a Union flag and for a Leave thing, and then repost them? And that's what I never understood. Again, I've said it so many times, that's the thing I don't understand. How can you want, and you did explain in the sense of Ken Westminster has a highly unelected ancient system rooted in the past, which is so hard to change, won't change, and they're all fucking...
No, it's so inherently corrupt. But I think what was I going to say? I'm drawing a blank now. And the thing is, again, the lack of planning, right? How can you sort of hold a referendum, right, and make it, and on a whim almost, it's like, we'll just do it, and all it was basically Cameron making this promise so he'd get another term in office. That's all it was, an annoying thing about it was it's a government elected not in a very democratic form, the first past the post voting system with 37% of the vote. So a party made this decision that only held 37% of the vote to even hold a referendum in the first place. That bothers me, it's the same party that was pissing and moaning about the SNP doing it, who had just short of 50% of the vote, for the Indy referendum, and to be honest, just under 50% of the vote is huge. That is huge, I don't think there's been any Westminster government that's gotten just under 50% of the vote. Oh no,
it's huge. But another example of how the media spins things is, in Scotland, the SNP for the Remain breakdown is, say, 62-38.
Yeah.
And Labour was 61-39. Now, Corbyn's leadership was looked at as a disgrace, as can get elected done, all that kind of stuff. And Nicola's leadership was looked at as excellent. She kind of led for but yet the numbers are almost identical. Mm-hmm. So it just shows you how the media portray or how strong the party is. The Scottish National Party is fucking strong, and in some respects, I've voted SNP a few times for my own to get independence, etc. But on other things, I've voted Green because I like their policies a lot better. But tactically, I vote SNP. But their party subscribers are almost like cultish. Yeah, I mean, there's some really hard-line Scottish, and I don't mean nationalists in the sense of it's more they've signed up to a particular, it's like a religion, as opposed to kind of. It's almost like a football team, that kind of mentality of.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you argue that your team didn't play well.
Yeah.
They're your team, and you'll defend the skills that they used.
True.
And it's like, we're not talking about. I'm not not rejecting you as a person. I'm rejecting your ideas. A lot of people are getting stuck.
Getting very personal. Back to the sort of nationalism argument as well. Scottish nationalism was portrayed in the media as being this bad thing, tearing apart Britain, blah blah blah, right? But for what I have seen, British nationalism is more founded in sort of racism.
Oh no, for sure,
it's kind of like
it's a more Scottish is more a civic, civic nationalism.
And to me, so really, nationalism isn't bad as long as it's not hate based, and I think that's
one thing I do find funny about the kind of English nationalists, where they again, it's St George's Cross in England, in
Garland, aye.
And it's like, well, if we St George rocked up with his dark skin and his curly black hair, and said, "Hello, I'm St George. I'm the patron saint of England. I'm also from the Middle East. From again, first languages would be Aramaic or something like this. It would probably get a bit done in." And get back your own country.
Yeah.
And it's like, the same like St Andrew, it's a crazy thing, and we worship. That's one of the things that a lot of folk who are like Christians, and they're like fucking, they hate Muslims, right? Or this kind of mentality that's arising, anti-Islamic, and it's like, I'm a Christian. It's like the Britain's first. They're always like, we're the Knights of Christian and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, let's go back and just look at these 12 apostle characters, and there's Jesus, a character. And they're all dark hair, dark skinned, speaking Aramaic or Arabic, or some kind of form of kind of Middle Eastern language, because they're all based around that kind of area.
Yep.
And you would be so full of hate for the actual people that you've supposedly dedicated your life to. I mean, people have been brainwashed to think that big Jesus was some fucking white brother with brown hair and sparkling blue eyes, when in fact there's absolutely no chance that the big fucking JC had fucking.
No, I know.
And his name as well, Jesus Christ. His name would have sounded like
Jesus.
No, it'd have been like here, so it would have been some sort of guttural kind of, because that's the way that kind of languages sound in the Middle East.
Yeah, but I don't.
See, and another thing on that as well, which I find is quite kind of funny. Again, you hear somebody say Allah Akbar, God is great, and a lot of people are fucking Muslim, right? Aramaic and Arabic, if you come from, say, Palestine, and you're a Christian, and you say God is great, you don't say it in English, you say it in Arabic. And how do you say God is great in Arabic? Allah Akbar. So that could be a Christian saying, "My God is great."
Yeah.
Again, it's no a dictate of the language when you refer to it. It's the Muslim God Allah. Again,
it's fear based. It's fear on what they don't understand, what people don't understand, and I just think we need to kind of park this hate for things that we don't understand, and actually spend time to learn about them.
Well, that's always the argument, and the other side of that argument is always the case. So, and you've came across it yourself. There's folk like me and you, but anti-Apple. Like I would say, I'm anti-Apple. I just think most of the time when I meet somebody who's like a big Apple user and talks passionate about Apple, and they go and spend £800 on Apple Watch, I just think, there's no help for you. You are so far gone that no rational thought, no intellectual argument, no will ever bring you back from the precipice. You have been sold by the marketing campaign, hook, line and sinker, and they've got a wee chip in your brain now, and you're gone. You're far gone. They could polish a turd, put a fucking Apple sticker on it, and tell you it was an eye shite, and you would buy it. You know what I mean? That's where some people are.
Yeah.
So when you're discussing with people about, say, religion, Christianity or Islam, there's loads of people that are so far entrenched in their camp, you can't even say to them, look, you know how ridiculous this sounds.
Cognitive dissonance.
Huh?
Yeah.
What about dinosaurs? What about them? Oh, and they've got a thing where to come back at you. And what about this? What about that? And then you start talking about the omnipresence of God and the stars and all. Again, you go on for this whole other podcast, you know. And there is a podcast up. I think it's around about 20 where I think it was with Greg Andrew, and we talk about the ridiculousness of Jesus, and I think we as well done a podcast
we
on religion on a bit as well. So there's plenty of podcast material up there if you want to hear our crazy stance on religion. But I think, like, if we're moving forward as human brothers and sisters within a political system, as we now need to move forward, I think we should move forward with the best intentions. And for me, that means that a lot of people in the Remain camp have to get off their high horses, and they have to acknowledge as it's like a self evaluation that they're the intelligent side, that they have to acknowledge that no everybody on the other side is a fucking troglodyte racist ignoramus, and that the future lies in the hands of everyone who voted, no one side or the other. The future now, again, we were a people, then we were divided by a vote. We need to come back, become the people, and realise that we're leaving the thing. We have to create new institutions, new laws, etc., and force through a more democratic, actual, using the word democracy, from the people, by the people, for the people, democratic system, rejig the whole Westminster system, break it down, rebuild it, power to the people. I'd be very happy to be a member of the United Kingdom, British, all that kind of good stuff, if it meant we could break up the system. The reason I want independence is we'll get more chance of breaking up the system and instilling a more democratic, kind of local based, kind of modern thought based, progressive system. But unfortunately, again, it's really hard to do within a big beast like the Euro. It's hard to do within a wee beast like United Kingdom, 3 kingdoms, 4 kingdoms together. It's even hard today as an independent nation state, but it's not as hard as being one of 4 or one of 4 within one of 28.
Do you think this is the end of the United Kingdom? This is the catalyst.
I think we hopefully not United Kingdom. Hopefully it's the end of the United Kingdom as we know it, but like a federalised UK comes about, something like that, where we can still can travel, we can still trade, we can still all the rest of it, but we have dominion over ourselves, you know. We share an island, we share a culture, we share a language. We are the same people essentially.
I mean, I don't see the point we need of us having borders, but it's a case of we need you know, Scottish Parliament want and people want to we want to control our own affairs, and it's pretty obvious by this vote that we have, and basically pretty much any general election ever, that the will of Scotland is entirely the opposite end of the spectrum of the will of England. And I think the only way forward is, you know, independence in some shape or form, whether it be federal or.
I think it has to change, but I think at the end of the day, it's all transitional. I said earlier, on the big landscape of history, it's a very short period of time, and most people, they need to look at it within the context of history and large swathes of time, and realise that everything's continuously changing. Everything's kind of chaotic icebergs that are getting flipped, and we have an opportunity in the now, not in the past, not in the future, in the now, to take personal responsibility and make the change that you want to see in the world around you. That isn't just some hammy one hash fucking sentence, but it's the reality. Buddha changed the religion of India
Bless you.
60% within his lifetime. Big JC, if he actually existed, changed the fucking religion of a third of the world's population for 2,000 years after he was fucking born. One individual is powerful. That's what I'm getting at. Some guy called Steve Jobs created a shitty computer and has influenced fucking millions of folk. People can make fucking powerful change. Genghis Khan united these people and fucking took on the fucking known world and fucking slaughtered every motherfucker. He was a barbaric motherfucking fucker. People can do things,
Yeah.
but most of the time, especially in the working classes, people have somehow been capped. They don't realise their own potential. It's like there was a famous actor, a famous Scottish politician somewhere. But I can't remember who said it, but essentially the ethos was he walking past a high-rise flat and saying behind that one they could be a doctor, behind that one they could be a F1 racer, behind that one they could be a... But we'll never know.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah.
too
No,
poor.
it's. I think the working class has had enough time of people telling them that they can't do this, can't do that. That it's actually sunk in. You know.
And I think that's a lot of the point where when that frustration gets to the point of, then the only power you vote is a ridiculous vote.
Aye.
It's like, fuck you, fuck the system.
Yeah.
Can't get any worse.
Yeah.
Rich vote to remain, poor vote to leave. That's kind of a lot of the sentiment and mentality of the general, and I'm generalising, in a lot of the kind of poorer places in the kind of north and mid Englandshire.
Why do you think Scotland voted differently then?
Why? Because we've become a nation of sheeple.
No.
The Scottish Nationalist Party sheeple, where personally, I say I don't understand. For me, independence is about being independent. I can't fathom why you would go out your way to say you want massive change, you want the system to be fucking basically upheaved to create this fucking fantastic Scottish utopia, but at the same time, because if we had became independent, we would have been kicked out of Europe, would have been kicked out of fucking Westminster, we would have been a small independent nation trying to get back into Europe, but it wouldn't have happened. We would have been a small independent nation now on our feet for a year, trying to make trade kind of way every day and any day. We would have created new institutions, new political system. The left, the right and the centre ground would have created new kind of political ideas, new members of parliament would rose, new leaders, etc. And we'd be on our way to being whatever way we developed, but as a small independent nation, no part of. And the people within Scotland would have been deciding, do we want to rejoin Europe? Do we want to rejoin? Do we want to... But it would have been us deciding. You know, would have been learning how to walk again, and would have made these decisions for that vantage point. But now it's like as if folk don't want that opportunity to... It's like you get Lego bricks, and somebody gives you the Lego bricks, and they give you a Millennium Falcon, and it's all made of Lego, but they give you it built and they say you can't change it. It's like, no, I've got to smash that fucking Millennium Falcon to bits, get all the Lego bricks, and then one day I'll make a car, the next day I'll make a helicopter, maybe I'll make a Millennium Falcon, but I fucking make anything then, because there's no limitations on it. There's no limitations when you're making the Lego bricks. A lot of people think they buy the Millennium Falcon Lego kit and they can only make a Millennium Falcon, and they can actually make fucking anything they want. We have to believe that we can make anything we want, that we can make a very positive, awesome society.
And the thing is, we can do that within the EU.
We can.
But
we can do it within Westminster.
Yeah.
We can stay in this system and we can change it and we can overhaul it. But it's harder.
Yeah, when you've got 3 layers of government rather
and
than
also,
one. Yeah.
when you break away, it gives a sense of confidence to the people that, holy fuck, the system does change. Holy fuck, what just happened there? We actually voted out of Europe. The fucking system does change. It's not just status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. Oh, it's the Tories, it's the Labour, it's the Tories, it's the Labour, it's the Tories, it's the Labour. There's a tax cut, there's a tax cut, there's a no tax cut. Oh, there's this. Most of the time, none of this has any bearing on anybody's life. It's the status quo, it's the status quo. You go to your job, you fucking finish your job, you go to the pub at the weekend, you have a way, and they grow up, they go hang, you buy your house, you're paying your mortgage, status quo, rat race, status quo, status quo. Boom! What the fuck was that? Oh, we voted and it was like, alright.
So, what do you think then, future of the EU? Because I think it's probably going to start collapsing. Not like overnight, but I think we'll see some more exits from sort of larger countries.
Well, companies.
Same thing. They own the countries.
I think it'll get. It could go either way, but obviously, if you're the European Union, I think they're going to nature of the beast is survival. So it's about making sure that it's harder to Brexit, making sure that it's. Hopefully, you would think they would say, "Okay, we've been appeasing the middle classes and the corporate elite. Now we have to fucking say this system isn't working, and let's can start working out how we can make money." And but the problem with the classic problem with Europe is you're getting countries like Germany, which are like China manufactures the world. But Germany designs a lot of the fucking manufacturing super plants that the Chinese use to manufacture the world. So again, plus they make loads of cars and get a great education system. Like, I don't know if you had the opportunity, but when I was at university, I always worked with German guys. You always get exchange students, and I would always try and get a German guy on the team.
I never had the opportunity
because they were wired different. They were literally, it was one guy.
I mean, I've since worked on projects with German guys, and the work ethic is fantastic.
Aye.
It's
sharp, super sharp. And like I was, it was the guy was a computer science guy, but he decided to broadcast production for a year, and for however reason, I was like, Germany is, and I said, okay, right, we're working together, good. And so we created it was like a 3-minute video, and I had suggested we'll do it on blue screen, we'll do 3 cameras on blue screen, we'll have to track the blue screen, and we'll animate all the fucking backgrounds, foregrounds, and do all this kind of stuff. And I was really trying to push my own boat about what I could do and can make it real technical. And he was like, oh, I don't understand a lot of stuff you're talking about, but let's do it. And within about a week, he had After Effects. He had every fucking plug-in illegally downloaded. He had fucking every fucking thing. He'd worked out how to key. He had worked out all this kind of stuff. No shipping about. Whereas, other folk, you'd be explaining shit to them. You know what I mean? On the ball, and then all came together. You know, like fucking just. There's the problem. How do I work it out? Boom. On another project, I worked with a German lassie, and it was a 20-minute observational documentary. And obviously, I had my computer set up a different one then. She was like, come to your house. I don't want you there though, and I just want to edit. She was the editor.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, 8 or 10 hours or something. She just sat there and edited non-stop. done the fucking thing with, she didn't operate on Premiere Pro, learnt the fucking software for an hour or so, and then amazing, like that kind of work ethic, that kind of so like having a nation state like that, and then having other nation states that, I'm not saying they don't have a great work ethic, but their economy isn't as strong.
Yeah.
But it's like a balance, It's like, how can...
Well, that's the whole... That has been the problem with the EU, is basically the weaker states bringing down the stronger states.
And then the other side of that as well, if you're you can just say that you're a car manufacturer,
yeah,
and you're making fantastic cars, and you want to trade with, say, India. So India has to open a trade negotiation with Europe to trade with these fantastic cars. But just say that we don't want to trade with India, us in Britain, because our industry is textiles. And if we open up trade negotiations with India for these cars, so Germany can sell the cars, then our textile industry will go down the pan because they've got a bigger textile industry and they can offer it cheaper. So there's that kind of balance as well, where there's a lot of, when it comes to trading with other people, it has to be very fine, because there's 28 states or countries with different specialisms and different products, different services. And that's why I got kind of crazy with people like labelling Parmesan cheese. Parmesan can only come from this kind of region, regulations and all that kind of stuff to safeguard their products when they're selling. Quite early. So, I mean, you have champagne comes from a particular region and all that kind of stuff. I think the problem, like in America there's places that are third world nations. Like the places within the American states that are like the one. It was a Top Gear episode of all things, and they were driving through. I think it was Alabama or something like this, and it was after the floods, Katrina, and they were driving through, and they were literally, houses were still collapsed. The fucking, and it was Jeremy Clarkson, who's the most right wing fucking cunt ball ever, and he's giving up. Holy fuck, this place is like still. You'd expect this place to be first world nation after a hurricane, be back up on its feet, and people were still living out of cars, but, really run down.
That's been the same going back 20, 30 years, because I mean, you look at what was that documentary that Michael Moore done? Is it Roger and I? Yeah, and basically about is it General Motors plant closing in Flint, Michigan? Yeah, and basically that
was his first one, was it not?
That was his first one. Yeah, it's actually one of his better ones, because you could tell there was real passion in it, because it was obviously his home.
I had the axe to grind, and it
was he definitely had a point to make, rather than just the man. Yeah, but it was. Even going back that far, the start of the decline, I suppose, of American kind of manufacturing. You still had that kind of, these areas that were so deprived, and houses boarded up, and people, through people being evicted, presumably. It's what scares me is the fact that the UK, with its sort of with the Brexit vote and inward thinking, is that we're going to go down the same road as America. Where we, it's like America's a very kind of, I think it's like some ridiculous percentage of Americans have never stepped foot outside of the United States.
Yep.
That scares me, the fact that that we could become this kind of insular kind of people. I don't think it's going to happen here in Scotland, but down in England, I think if it could, with the sort of the racist among the racist working class.
But I don't think that will stop people travelling. I mean, the racist working class, the racist middle class, the racist upper class, the racists like to travel. No, I mean, and kind of at the end of the day, you move to wherever you want to go for your own means. I mean, that racists they're very easy to disguise themselves. So, like the problem I see with the big superstate of America is there's almost two systems. And I don't really understand how it works, but there's almost two systems, and there's I like the kind of Icelandic small. There's a couple of other small nations.
Singapore.
Where they've got really good education. They've used the talent and the skill of the people to create a fantastic, highly educated, high tech infrastructure that when the shit hits the fan, the system can react to it, and they don't take the people for granted. For instance, in Iceland, when the bankers caused a big crash, everybody else in the world said, "We, the bankers, fucked you over. Now give us a lot of money to be fucking put it in the hole so that we can continue to fuck you over." And everybody said, "Yes, sir. Here's the money. Our governments are just about to sort you out." The governments gave them the money, printed the money, sorted them out, and they continued, and they fucking gave themselves big bonuses and all the rest of it. And the working class folk and the middle class folk and the upper middle class folk and the fucking upper class just got fucked over by these fucking super rich elite bank owning fucking cartel cunts. But the Iceland, they fucking jailed them. They put them in jail and said, "No, you're responsible. You fucking crazy bastards. No, the people. You're responsible." To me, that's the society I want to live in. But how do you get there? How do you get to that kind of that's not happening within the Euro. It's not happening within Westminster. It maybe not even happen within Scotland. But you get more chance of enforcing it when you can drive across to Edinburgh 40 minutes, shout at people if need be. You know what I mean? Like when shit hitting the fan and you have to go to Belgium and you can't fucking travel because it's a digital economy and somebody's hit a keystroke and fucking wiped out all your cash, you know what I mean, because you're a fucking dissident and you've come to fucking protest, and the fucking electronic system, they've wiped out your cash and said no to your electronic passport, so you can't travel, so you can't even get to fucking Belgium or fucking wherever, because that shit's happening, you know what I mean. Rupert Murdoch's company, one of his companies, has won to create the electronic voting system for 2020, and the reason they won is because BSkyB, because they have the infrastructure and the already the subscriptions kind of services and all that computing power and logistics and that infrastructure to deliver, so they won the bid and the tender. But that scares me that Rupert Murdoch or one of his companies has the electronic voting kind of future in their hands. On, like, it's been shown time and time again. I mean, I press a button on a computer and I say yes or no. I've got no guarantee that. Whereas I've worked at the elections and I have stood there and watched as people count, as hundreds of people count, and even at that, you don't know. You can still have your doubt in the system, but you're physically seeing loads of people count, and then at the end they get their packed lunch and they fuck off. And my job was to call through the results, but it was as opposed to loads of people anonymously press a button on their smartphone via an app, and then 5 minutes later you're told that after the deadline, 5 minutes later you're told,
fuck,
this person won or that person won.
I struggle to write a text on my bloody phone, you know, without making a mistake. You imagine voting on your phone?
What's going to happen? It's will happen within the next five or so years. Right, I'm going to wrap that up at 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think it's a very reasonable time slot for a podcast.
Who's actually going to sit and listen to this? 2 hours.
Yeah, quite a lot of people, because it's fucking awesome. So if you've listened to the podcast, I'd just like to say thank you very much to Colin for coming on and sharing these ideas and remain. Once again, the podcast does support itself, but it supports itself through sponsorship, and the sponsorship is the Energetic Mind t-shirts. So if you want to buy a t-shirt, you can get them there. Fantastic links under the description on the website and the Facebook page, etc. And also Health Made Simple, and soon to becoming a new book. But check that shit out. Colin, how can people get in contact with your good self if they need anything in terms of
www.colinwoodmedia.com. Still trying to get my new website designed. It's one of the worst jobs you could possibly do is design your own website, but I'll get that done. I'm on Facebook as well. Again, just search Colin Wood Media. And if you want to give me a job, then great, just get in contact, because I got to eat.
There we go. So check out Colin, check out the sponsors, and like, comment, share. All the best. Catch ya. Cheesy wise.
Bye.
Everything is an Illusion is brought to you by RobWallaceMedia.com, award-winning media. TheEnergeticMind.com, inspirational, motivational and thought-provoking art. And Health Made Simple. Buy today, change your life forever. healthmadesimple.info. Thank you, and remember, question everything.